A 416 backhoe loader in here, and we're going to demonstrate a full alternator output test. Our first step of the alternator output test is to check for excitation voltage. So if you remember when we talked about it, we need to look at the small wires going to the alternator. This one I can see I have two small wires going to the alternator, and one is labeled D plus and one is labeled W. The excitation wire is the D plus wire. So I need to check first before I do anything else and make sure that it's getting excitation, right? So I'm going to take my meter, set it to DC volts, and then we're going to check that excitation voltage of that D plus wire. So I'm going to go from the case of the alternator right to the D plus wire, and then I'm going to ask that he turn on the key. Go ahead and turn on the key, and I can see I'm getting 1.0. There we go, 1.01 volts. I'm supposed to have at least what? 0.2. So I'm at 1.01. Do I have excitation? Yes. So go ahead and turn off the key. I know I have excitation going to the alternator. That part's good, said and done, right? The next thing I want to do is check the connection to the alternator itself and compare it to the battery. I'm making sure that I'm getting a good connection to the battery, because that's what its job is to do, is to charge the battery. So again, we'll set my meter up here. I'm going to go to the B plus terminal, B plus this time, the big wire coming off the alternator. That one's easy to find. And I'm going to go to that terminal and the case of the alternator. I'm at 12.35, right? I'm at 12.35. I want to make sure that I'm on 0.5 volts of battery voltage. So I'm going to go right over here and look at it right now, right down at the batteries. And I'm just going to go to positive and negative of the battery. What do I got? 12.36. Am I within 0.5? Definitely, no question about it, right? So I'm at 12.35, 12.36, right? Now I'm going to do initial check of alternator operation. So we've got the machine neutral, the boom locked up, the outrigger's down. So we're in full safety mode. We've got an operator in there. He's going to put his foot on the brake. We're going to again check initial voltage of the alternator. It's at 12.37. I'm going to go ahead and start it up and go to 75% throttle. So I'm at 14.4. So I went from 12.37 to 14.4. My initial check of alternator operation is good, right? No question about it. Now, because the alternator can fail in a third, 2/3, or the whole thing, depending on whether it's part of the stator that failed, the voltage regulator that failed, or the rectifier, right? I may be different ways, or how much of the stator has failed. What we're going to do is do a full alternator output test now. We know that it can output some, but we want to see how much amperage it can output now. So in order to do this, I need to create a situation where I put a draw on the alternator. So I'm going to turn on the key and turn on every accessory I have, every single thing. Go ahead and turn on those windshield wipers, four-way flashers, windshield wipers should be one of these levers here. That one, other side, something like that. There we go, turn that knob. Okay, so now we got plenty of accessories on, right? We want to get to the point where we draw that battery down, but yet we still want the machine to be able to start, right? So if I look at this alternator, this is going to make life simple. It's a 100 amp alternator. So I need to put out within 90% of that. So it's easy. Even Big Boy could do the math, right? That it's 90 amps that I need to put out. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready. As I'm discharging, I'm going to use both amp meters so I can show you how to use both of them. This one I've turned on, putting the 200 millivolt scale. It's going to output 1 millivolt per amp. The arrow is going to go in the direction of current flow, and then I can see this one right here. I'm going to take this one and put it to amps. Arrow is going to go in the direction of current flow. Both of them are reading 0 right now because the alternator is not outputting anything. After I do the initial check of amperage. Then I'm going to check my voltage. Now my voltage doesn't have to be to 13.8 for 10 minutes, but we'll check it right away and it'll be there, right? The only thing different I want you to do this time is as soon as you start it up, I want you to go to 75% throttle, right? And then I might tell you to turn off the accessories, right? Start it up, 75% throttle right away. I'm looking for amperage first, right? Go ahead. Okay, so what do we see there? We saw a lot, right? We saw 112 amps right off the bat, right? And then you saw the amperage go down right away a little bit. Why did it go down right away a little bit? It started doing what? Charging the battery, right? So as it was charging the battery, my amperage was going down. I then had him turn off the accessories and the amperage went down even further, right? What did I notice about voltage when I checked my voltage at the end? It was 14.14, which is 13.8 plus or minus 0.5, right? So now I check my excitation, I've checked my connections, I've checked my initial alternator output, and then I've checked it using an amp meter to determine if it can put output full output. The problems that I've seen along the way is people get a little confused on excitation, refer to the schematics to make sure you know how it's excited or whether it's externally excited or not. And then I've had some people fail an alternator because they didn't put enough load on it. So I loaded this one by using all the accessories and discharging the batteries for a little bit. Worked beautiful. The other thing you can do is if I can't get enough accessory load on it, put a battery load tester on the battery and actually load the battery down while it's running, right? I just never want to exceed 1/2 a cold cranking amps when I'm doing that to see if I can get the output of it. Questions? Perfect.